Ladies and gentlemen, the 2023 season is finally upon us. Another year of angry fans and optimism all across America, hoping this is the year that their team hoists the Lombardi Trophy. And you know what that means? It's time to make some predictions that will probably age like milk. I'm gonna split these picks into both conferences, otherwise this video would take a year and a half to complete. The NFC is up first. I'll be going by division, sometimes from first to last or vice versa. I'm not gonna waste any more of your time, let's go. Starting with the NFC East, let's not overthink this. The Philadelphia Eagles are the runaway favorites to win the division, and for good reason. They mostly retained a squad that came oh so close to winning a Super Bowl. Although they lost Chauncey Gardner-Johnson in free agency, they added a physical demon on the defensive line in Jalen Carter. Let's not waste too much time on the Eagles. Elite quarterback, receiving core, and defense. 13-4, number 2 seed. Next, although I don't think the Dallas Cowboys are necessarily going to challenge Philadelphia for the division, they seem to be a playoff lock as well. One of the most well-balanced teams in the NFL from top to bottom, especially on defense. Holy shit, that unit is scary. Micah Parsons is the DPOY betting favorite. Trayvon Diggs will be a force at corner, and if Malik Hooker can stay healthy, then watch out. As for the offense, Dallas is finally done dragging Ezekiel Elliott's corpse on the field, and the wide receiver core is rock solid. However, I'm not a huge fan of the Brian Schottenheimer hire at offensive coordinator. The offensive line has its question marks, and Dak Prescott is, well, a walking question mark. If he can cut down on the turnovers, then the sky is the limit for this team, in the regular season that is. Otherwise, this team is sort of trapped in that good, not good enough tier. Whatever, let's all just come back to this video and laugh when they're canned in one of the first 2 playoff rounds again. I'm telling you, do not sleep on the Washington Commanders. First of all, Dan Snyder's chokehold on the franchise is finally over and done with, which I'm sure counts for good karma points or something like that. Washington is running back a top 10 defense that has room to only get better, especially if Chase Young can stay healthy and finally have that breakout season we've been waiting for. If he can do that, paired with Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, and Montez Sweat, that line will single-handedly win them games. The secondary is iffy to say the least, but Emmanuel Forbes could very well be the piece they need to get them at a respectable rate. As for the offense, let's go over the negatives first. That offensive line is ugly. Charles Leno and Andrew Wiley are your best blockers? Yeah, alright. That sure as hell isn't going to make sophomore running back Brian Robinson's job any easier, who already didn't have a good rookie season. Believe it or not, I actually like what I've seen from quarterback Sam Howell so far. They'll at the very least have stability at the position with Jacoby Brissett alongside him. The Commanders aren't ready to go in a deep playoff run just yet, but I do think this is the team that is going to surprise a lot of people and snag that last NFC playoff spot. And yes, that means the New York Giants are the odd ones out. I'm sorry, I am just not a Daniel Jones fan. He's decent, he can play the role of game manager pretty well, he won't ruin your product, but that's a compliment you give to your toaster or the local laundromat, not a franchise quarterback in 2023. Yes, the Giants won 10 games last year, and Daboll is a great coach, and Darren Waller will be a fantastic weapon for Jones, but let's be real here, this team is a Saquon Barkley injury away from going right back to being the clear-cut worst team in the division. Outside of Andrew Thomas, the offensive line is a joke. The defense has a couple solid pieces. I really like the rookie Deonte Banks at corner, and the defensive line has a high ceiling, but this team just falls short. Honestly, if they were in the majority of other divisions in the league, they could be better off, but in the NFC East, I am just not impressed by what this team brings to the table. I know Minnesota took all the attention of fluky wins last year, but did you see how the Giants were stealing wins in 2022? That's not a compliment either. Way too often were they the benefactors of an opponent pissing down their leg. Regardless, I could be totally wrong, because this team does have its strengths. They just do not move me. Moving to the NFC North, probably the most interesting division in the conference, I think you can make a case for any team in the division to win it. Regardless, my pick for last place remains the Chicago Bears. Justin Fields definitely has the sky-high ceiling all franchise quarterbacks need, but let's be real here. As a passer, he still stinks. He's the actual highlight reel merchant people call Justin Herbert. At least now he has a solid wide receiver core to work with. Khalil Herbert and Donta Foreman make for a competent running back duo. They have a couple of decent pieces on the offensive line. This offense could make some noise, but it's just too much of an if for me to rely on right now. Defensively, despite how awful they were in 2022, I think there's plenty to be optimistic about here as well. Matt Eberflus is more of a developmental coach and now has a plethora of new talent on that side of the ball. Tremaine Edmonds and TJ Edwards will make for one of the league's better linebacker duos and have numerous young pieces that could make for a bit of a surprise on defense. In the end, the way this team is formed, there's just too many ifs for me to put them any higher than 7-10 as of now. A team I see as equally blah is their hated rivals in the Green Bay Packers. We all know what the story is here. Jordan Love. I have absolutely no idea how he's going to pan out, and I'm not even going to pretend to know how he'll pan out. This team is just so Their receiving core is Their defense is fine, but nothing special. Aaron Jones is pretty good with an above-average offensive line, so they should be able to run the ball fairly well, but this whole team's success is dependent on Jordan Love. If Love continues the trend of Hall of Fame quarterbacks falling into Green Bay's lap, then they'll be a force, but I wouldn't count on it. I'm not going to pop any blood vessels over this team, so I'm just going to toss them at 7-10 and move on with my life. Now we have the NFL's new media darling, the Detroit Lions. I get the vibe that a lot of people are gassing this team up to an obscene degree because everyone feels bad for them because they're the fucking Lions, but I can see why the expectations are higher than what you'd expect from Detroit. Jared Goff is coming off arguably his best season statistically. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a stud. They made some crucial additions to their secondary. Aiden Hutchinson can be the key piece the pass rush desperately needs, and if Jahmyr Gibbs turns into what the Lions think he's gonna be, then he could provide the balanced offensive attack the team could seriously use. Let's not ignore the reinforcements in Jameson Williams that will come after he serves his suspension. That offensive line is also especially stout. I will say this about Detroit. It was cool to be the lovable losers for a while, but it's time for results. I love Dan Campbell as much as the next guy, but sooner or later, you gotta start winning. I do expect the Lions to do that this year, though. I think 9 wins and a wildcard spot in the playoffs is a safe enough bet for this bunch. If they handle the next offseason well, then we can talk about the Lions being a serious contender, but I'm not ready to have that conversation just yet. Finally, we have the NFL's bridesmaids, the Minnesota Vikings. I don't have a lot to say about the offense that you don't know already. It's weapons galore. The best wide receiver in the league in Justin Jefferson, grouped up with rookie Jordan Addison and KJ Osborne, a full season of TJ Hawkinson, and Netflix merchant Kirk Cousins. For all his flaws, he's still one of the 10 best quarterbacks in the NFL. In the running game, I'm kinda skeptical. Alexander Mattison has had under 4 yards per carry in his last 2 seasons, and I'm not too high on that offensive line. I pray they give rookie Dwayne McBride some carries as a rookie, though. As for the other side of the ball, was there a bigger addition by subtraction move made this offseason than the Vikings getting rid of Ed Donatel and replacing him with Brian Flores? The defensive talent is quite lacking, to say the least, but Flores is one of the few defensive minds I trust to make the most of what he's given. Although I think these Vikings are an improvement over last year's squad, I expect their win-loss total to come down a little bit. I mean, seriously, do you see the Vikings winning a bunch of close games in the clutch again? I don't. I do, however, see them winning the NFC North again. Whether or not they make any noise in the playoffs this time is their true test. The NFC South is next, and yet again, we're going to start from the bottom, because I don't feel like burning much steam on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Looking back, this team's window was slammed shut when they sent a blitz against the Rams and letting Cooper Kupp get wide open. Good on them for getting a ring while their window is open, but that time has come and gone. Tom Brady was clearly finished, and his heir apparent is, wait for it, Baker Mayfield, or Kyle Trask, I don't know, and I don't really care. This team still has some decent pieces, but the old core is only getting older. They have arguably the worst coach in the league in Todd Bowles, and they just feel like they're going to be drifting for a few years. Let the old core move on, and then start building their next contender. Hopefully for their sake, that phase won't take another 13 years. As for the rest of this division, I've heard people make a case for everyone else, but the team I'm the least optimistic about in that regard is the Carolina Panthers. Obviously, the headliner for these guys is first overall pick Bryce Young, who I do expect to have a good NFL career, but not right away. This team does have some things going for them. Their offensive line is competent enough to where Young won't die. Miles Sanders is coming off a career year in Philadelphia. DJ Chark and Adam Thielen should provide a good enough receiving core. And human lumberjack Hayden Hurst is an okay safety valve. And are you sensing a theme here? A whole lot of I guess all over this offense. Although there are a couple of studs on the defensive side of the ball, it's still an unremarkable group all things considered. It seemed like Carolina was looking for stability by hiring Frank Reich as their new head coach, which I won't say is a bad thing. Nothing wrong with wanting an experienced offensive coach for your rookie quarterback. I like the direction of this team. I could see them running the division in the next couple of seasons, but that time is not now. This is a year where Carolina just needs to focus on placing some building blocks for what's to come. The New Orleans Saints seem to be the favorite to run away with this division, and for good reason. Derek Carr, until proven otherwise, is the best QB in the South. Chris Olave seems to be a star in the making, and for the last 3 years they've cranked out top-tier defenses. But now it's time for me to be a negative Nancy, my favorite. If Todd Bowles isn't the worst head coach in the NFL, then Dennis Allen is. The offensive line is not good, barring a leap from Trevor Penning, who was solid as a rookie, but will be heavily tested at left tackle this year. The cornerback situation outside of Marshawn Lattimore is a mess, and oh, by the way, Joe Woods is their defensive coordinator. With that being said, let's circle back to Carr. It feels like every year, analysts and pundits everywhere gas the living hell out of Carr because his base stats look pretty good year in, year out, and for the fact that he's never had a good defense. This is where I remind you that Derek Carr is the biggest QB tease in the NFL. He has his moments, sure, but he'll follow up strong performances where you think he's the guy with absolute stinkers that franchise quarterbacks routinely just do not have. Don't be surprised if Derek Carr shreds the Patriots, then pisses down his leg against Houston or something. This is another team I could see myself being wrong on because, again, on paper, this is a solid bunch of players, but I'm just not convinced that this team will be able to be anything more than one of those 500 drifters. I have the Saints finishing 8-9, missing the playoffs due to a Week 18 loss to, yes, the Atlanta Falcons. I know this is going to be a pretty controversial take, but you're going to have to hear me out on this one. This offense is loaded. Chris Lindstrom headlines one of the best offensive lines in the league, which is perfect for new running back Bijan Robinson. Robinson is a demon athlete who's going to provide a spark in both the run and pass game. Had it not been for the dramatic downfall of the running back position, he probably would have been drafted even higher, and he was still a top 10 pick. If I had to bet my house on a rookie that will shine right out the gate, then Bijan's my choice. Wide receiver Drake London is coming off a strong rookie season, and the underrated Matt Collins will make for a great second receiver. Hopefully, this will be the year we finally see the breakout of Kyle Pitts at tight end, and a lot of that is going to be on second-year quarterback Desmond Ridder. Ridder started 4 games in 2022 and was decent, nothing spectacular, but showed enough promise for me to be optimistic about his development. Especially for the reasons I've mentioned above, he's been set up for success in Atlanta. Now for the glaring elephant in the room, the defense. It hasn't been good in quite a while. I don't expect it to be that much better in 2023, but I like some of the signings they made. Jesse Bates will be a ball hawk in the secondary, and Calais Campbell is a seasoned veteran that the defense could use alongside Grady Jarrett, and I'm expecting a bounce-back year from A.J. Terrell. This defense still isn't great. Outside of Bud Dupree, their linebacker is full of youngsters who don't seem fully ready. I'm not a huge fan of Arthur Smith, far from the worst coach, but has been sort of underwhelming in the NFL. There is no excuse for the Falcons offense to not be absolutely electric this year, and because of that, they're my choice to claim the NFC South crown. And if Ridder takes that leap, and if the front office bolsters that defense in the next year or two, then watch out. Our last division in this video is the NFC West, and we're going to go in reverse order again, because we all know the Arizona Cardinals are going to be a disaster this year. They have, 3 good players, a non-commodity at head coach, no Kyler Murray for a significant chunk of the year. Yeah, this team is the front runner in the Caleb Williams sweepstakes for a reason. Kyler Murray is all but done as a Cardinal, and his time with the team has generated more memes than playoff wins. If I have to say something nice about this team, I'll give them this. I like the Paris Johnson pick at offensive tackle, and getting Houston's first-round pick in 2024 has the potential to jumpstart the rebuild. They have a bright future if they get Caleb, but for now, they're in the dumpster. Oh, and their new uniforms suck. I could spend all day making fun of the Cardinals, but if we're being honest, the Los Angeles Rams aren't that much better. I hope selling out for Super Bowl 56 was worth it, because that window has slammed all the way shut. Sure, they still have some of the core pieces from that Super Bowl team, but everything else has been depleted beyond belief. Matthew Stafford's shoulder issues have me wondering if he'll ever be the same quarterback. Aaron Donald has been contemplating retirement for like 2 years. Cooper Kupp is aging and injured, and the rest of the team? If this was the NBA, you could get away with having no depth and just a few stars do all the dirty work. But sorry, the NFL has 53-man rosters. The offensive line is a disaster, their defense is garbage outside of Donald, and they can't run the ball. If Stafford returns to form, then maybe they'll have a chance. But the fact that Aaron Donald could very well be on the move if this season goes south should tell you something. I don't see a whole lot about this team changing in 2023, considering, if anything, they're worse now. We'll see you in 2025 or whatever when you actually have draft picks. Oh, and the Rams uniforms suck too. The Seattle Seahawks were the NFL's feel-good story in 2022, and for good reason. Pro Bowl quarterback Geno Smith is a sentence I never thought I would have uttered, but here we are. This team was supposed to be in the middle of a tank to be good in like 2026, but instead we're discussing if Seattle can build on last year's momentum to become a threat, or if last year was a fluke. I'm somewhere in the middle. On one end, Pete Carroll and the Seahawks have been brilliant at drafting elite talent, and with 2 first-round picks in 2023, who the hell knows what the future holds? On the other hand, I have my doubts that Seattle can keep it going. Last year, they started really strong, but reality seemed to set in on them down the stretch. Still made the playoffs, but the team was mostly ice cold after their bye week. Makes you wonder if their electric October or their trash December is who they actually are. Probably some mixture of both. Geno is an awesome story, but are we sure he can keep this up? He has the weapons to make it happen, but that offensive line? Yuck. And despite playing the Cardinals and Rams twice, this team has some tough cookies on their schedule. This is another case where I could be totally wrong, but I think this team is just going to miss out on the playoffs despite another solid season. We'll see how that prediction pans out, but I think we can all agree that the San Francisco 49ers are the class of their division. I actually don't think that the 49ers championship window will be open for as long as some may think, but it damn well is open right now. The Niners boast arguably the most stacked roster in all of football. How about we just rifle some of the stars on this team, shall we? Two-way running back Christian McCaffrey, Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk headlining the receiving corps, a top-tier tight end in George Kittle, the best left tackle in all of football in Trent Williams, a disgusting defensive line featuring Nick Bosa, Eric Armstead, and the newly signed Javon Hargrave, the best linebacker in the game in Fred Warner, Mr. Relevant providing the spark plug they need at the quarterback position, and to top it all off, an offensive wizard as their head coach. If any team is built to win now, it's this one. Injuries have been the grim reaper of the 49ers for the last few years, but that hasn't stopped them from making 3 conference championships and a Super Bowl in the last 4 years. If I had to find a weakness in this roster, I'd probably point to a questionable secondary, I guess. The 49ers are easily the safest bet in the NFC to win their division, and a hot pick to go to the Super Bowl. Remember, only 5 years ago, these guys were in deep doldrums after they ran Harbaugh out of town over a dick measuring competition. Shows what a smart front office can do for a franchise. This team's true test will be in January, not in the regular season. Wake me then. With that, that's all I've got for you today. If any of my predictions grinded your gears, feel free to get all pissy in the comments to boost me in the algorithm. That'd be nice. In the short-term future, I'll drop my AFC predictions then, and this will all come full circle, and then all we'll have to do is wait for football season to finally kick off. I just hope all of you are as excited as me.